exactly our lane. Weird and awkward.
Right.
Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast, everybody. Amber, awesome to have you back today. We missed you last week. I think Ren and I held it down, but we missed you. We were missing a part of this great triangle shape that we have, because triangles have 3 points and we're 3 people. So that made sense in my head. We're talking today, non sequitur. We're talking today about hiring, but we're talking about hiring like part-time help for specific tasks. And overwhelmingly, this is just something that people fuck up so bad and don't understand how to do. And it blows my mind. And really, the main reason why I'm recording this podcast today is because I get asked so much about this. Like, hey, how do I find a VA? Or, hey, how do I find somebody to help with a podcast? Or how do I find somebody to help with like a little bit of customer service or whatever it is? And I just want something to send them because I want to stop repeating myself. So that's where we are, everybody. What I'm going to do is a little bit different. I mean, I'm going to start with an example of something that I saw. I won't name who it is, of a group who just did this like horribly wrong and badly. And then I'm just going to hit you with like a whole bunch of examples. And I feel like that's a good way to communicate what I want to communicate, because what we have been taught, if you read books on how to hire people or articles or listen to other podcasts and stuff, which I've done a lot, they're all made for big companies. That's the problem. It's not bad advice. It is just simply bad advice for you if you just need a little bit of specific help achieving a task. You don't need to know how to create a job posting. You don't need to know where to place a job posting. You should not take in resumes. You should never even look at a resume. All of these things are going to be a waste of your time. Because A, it's just, you don't know how to judge these things. You have no clue what, so you look at a resume, you don't know what you're looking for. You're not trained in any of that shit. And then you're going to do an interview with somebody. Do you know how to interview somebody? No. Do you understand that anything other than a blind interview is mostly useless? There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Talking to Strangers, and he gives a great example in that book of basically that whole book is about how we just can't judge people like ever. Or the second that we see or hear somebody, all of our judgments just go out of whack. And he gives this example of this famous symphony orchestra. I can't remember which one it was, but New York Symphony Orchestra or something like that, that had like one female lead performer in their orchestra out of everybody. There was just like no women. And they asked them, and they said, no, we don't choose based off of gender. It's a meritocracy. We choose the best people. And then what they did is they started to have blind auditions where they didn't know who the person was that was auditioning for their instrument. They had a big wall up. And all of a sudden, 70% of the leads are female. And we see this over and over and over again. The second that you hear somebody's voice, the second that you see their face, you begin to make judgments on them. Well, different people operate differently. It's a big problem in the judicial system, in the court system as well, where just because somebody doesn't come off the way that we think is proper, maybe they just operate different mentally. Maybe they are trying to be kind. Maybe they are trying to be empathetic. Maybe it just doesn't sound like that because their brain just works a bit differently than ours. And yet they're judged, even in a court of law, often by how they come off. It's just completely wrong. So I say all of this to like, how the hell are you going to interview these people? It is so unbelievably difficult to try to hire conventionally that even the biggest companies don't do a very good job at it. And not because they don't try, not because they're not smart, not because they don't know what to do. That's just how hard it is. And whenever I'm faced with a hard problem in business, instead of trying to tackle the hard problem, often what I try to do is just look for an easier solution. And so I'm going to talk to you about the easier solution. But first, here's an example of a company that completely fucked this up. So they're a big Instagram page. They're basically like Instagram people. They're a big Instagram page. It's 2 people. 600 and some thousand followers or something, right? And they have an app because, I don't know, what do people who don't really know how to build like a big business but have a big Instagram page do? They do a low-end membership because it seems scalable, even though it's probably not the right business model for them, but it works good enough. And so they have this app that's like a low-end membership model. And I guess they needed like part-time help with it. So they needed somebody to work 20 hours a week. So they put up on their Instagram page to over 600,000 followers. They put up this really nicely designed, clearly it took them a long time to like think of the words to use to try to attract the right person for this job. And they posted it to their main page as this carousel thing that they're looking to hire a quote unquote superstar to join their team. Okay, This is the first staff member that they're going to hire. Need I remind you, the person that they're looking to hire is 20 hours a week, administrative and customer service help, which basically means you need somebody who's going to sit on email for 20 hours a week and answer questions like, how do I download this app? It's not a complicated job. You don't need a superstar. In fact, you would be way better served hiring somebody who's gone through your program or who is already using your app, who already understands how the thing works because they've already been in it for a long time and can connect with other people in a more serious way, in a better way, because they've been through that process already with them. And then, of course, I see this. It was a story that was put out the next day by one of the people who owned this page. And the story that they put out was, guys, look, we expected to get like 10, maybe 15 responses. We've had over 500 responses to this job posting. And I promise we're going to get through them all, but please give us a bit more time. No, you done fucked up, son. like, why? You know what you should have done? You should have looked at, you know how I hired Amber? Let's talk about how you got this job, Amber. Like, how did you start working for me in the first place?
I was a student from OTA and I like to procrastinate by helping other people in the group. And so I would often answer questions and stuff based on what I did know. And eventually John reached out and sent me a message. He's like, hey, do you want to help with the coaching inbox?
Right.
And at the time, I didn't know who you were really. Like, I just liked the course. And so I thought, man, he's full of shit. There's no way he's going to pay me at the end of the month. This sounds like a scam. But worst case scenario, he gets some free help from me for a month and whatever. But you paid me. And so here I am.
Well, here we are 6 years later, whatever it is. But it's like, hey, you're already doing this thing that I'm looking for somebody to do. Would you like me to pay you to do it in an official capacity?
Mm-hmm.
And so the overall theme of this entire episode is look for somebody already doing what you need help with. That's your proof. If they're doing it without getting paid for it, they're going to be ecstatic to get paid for it. And you already have some history and can look at like their skill set of doing that thing. And I'll tell you a few more examples across other.
Like with Quick Coach, I already know like the top person. If we ever did hire someone else, I have a candidate already in mind based off of this.
Yeah. So. Like Amber got this job originally because she was already showing up. She was already the type of person who was showing up in the group and being outwardly helpful. And I could see her responses and see the care and consideration and the thoroughness in her responses. I didn't interview anybody. It was just, let's try this out. So what could these two people have done better? It's pretty simple. You already have an app. You already have a Facebook. I know that they already have a Facebook community for their app. I am sure that there are people in that Facebook community who post and respond to comments more often. Make a list of the top 3 or 4 and just go down that list one by one and offer them the job. You're done.
In groups, you have that feature in your insights. You can see your top contributors. So it's super easy.
Like, you're done in 15 minutes. None of this. And you have somebody who has already proven to you that they're the right type of person, that they already do this, and you've seen their skill set of it. I don't give a shit where you went to college. It's completely irrelevant. I don't need to see your resume. It just
and you may suck at interviews. Like some people suck at interviews or are great at interviews, but suck at follow through on the actual job.
Yep. So one of our students, so that's one example. Okay. One of our students, Adrian, one of our mentorship students, sent me a Facebook message last week, which is actually what brought up this topic. And so he sent me a Facebook message and he said, John, like I'm really looking for help with my podcast. I love recording my podcast. I'm enjoying it, but I'm looking for somebody to just take over like the editing of it and publishing of it and stuff like that. Somebody who knows what they're doing. Do you know anybody? And so, first of all, I mean, asking somebody who you feel might know somebody there. I have a podcast. I've been doing a podcast for a lot of years. I'm in a lot of those communities. Not a bad person to ask. But I think he could have done better. And here's what I said to him is, there are a lot of people who run fitness podcasts that are very good podcasts that are good, like polished podcasts that don't have much listenership because they're just either newer to it or there isn't like that much special about their message. Like the podcast is produced well, but they just, if you've been a personal trainer for 2 years, you probably don't have that much to say on a podcast that's going to garner that much of an audience. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it because it's a great way to learn and get yourself out there. But there are a number of people out there that polish podcasts really well. I was like, go through the fitness podcast list, look for individual solo podcasts, listen to a whole bunch of them, find ones that seem to be produced well, i.e. like good sound quality, and they're consistent with how often they post, and just send them a message and ask them if they want to do yours, and you'll pay them $500 a month or whatever. That's what he did. Like, find people already doing the thing and get them to do the thing for you too. These people, I know some of them, and I gave him a few names. And I'm not going to name names, but I gave him a few of them. I was like, I know for a fact that these people have no business because they apply to our mentorship and we turn them down because they're not even making $1,000 a month. So I know for a fact that these people have no business. They're going to be happy to do this work for you, helping to publish your podcast. So it's a matter of working backwards from what matters. I have a few more examples here that I want to tell, but I want to get your two's reactions to this topic, to this kind of idea. Like, this is not some big company looking to fill multiple roles. This is, I need a little bit more help. Oftentimes, the first step when you need help is actually to figure out what you need help with versus saying, I'm so overwhelmed, I need help. Hey, I'm going to hire a VA. VA, do stuff. And then they're like, the VA wasn't good. It's like, no, you were just shit at informing a VA. Like the VA is probably fine. The virtual assistant is probably fine. You just did not know what you needed help with. And you said, do virtual assistant stuff. And then you were dissatisfied with what they did because they weren't helping you with what you needed help with because you didn't know what you needed help with. So the first step is to figure out like what you need help with. And then go to where people are already doing that thing and just get them to help you with that thing. It's so easy to find it. Anyway, Ren, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but that's exactly where I was about to go. Like the first problem I see with people hiring part-time is that they don't have a process to hire anybody into. Like, you just can't hire somebody and say, okay, make up what you need to do to get me to these goals. That's right. Where you're going to get the shittiest hire that you've ever had in your life. So figure out what your process is, figure out whether or not you understand it, work it a little bit, and it makes it a lot easier to hire somebody. I am a person who hired people for a large organization for a decade. I went to school for business, not for exercise or science. Like this is my wheelhouse. And you're right. You don't have any idea out there if you're a fitness trainer, even if you're successful and you're good at your business, hiring people in mass is a shitty way to live. Like
it's unbelievably difficult.
It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Like you get into psychological testing, you get into team dynamics, you get into a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, we've done it.
Let me tell you how
we hired an outside contractor who put all of our staff through psychological assessments. I can't remember which one that we used.
Amber, it's so difficult that I came into this business wishing to never hire a person. My entire business model for Fitness Jones Training is that I'll never have to hire anyone ever or manage them in any way ever again other than my clients. That was my dream existence. People talk to me about scaling all that. Oh, and that, no. I came from scale. Like I get residual income from being a long-term insurance agent with hundreds of insurance agents under me. I'm good there. I came here to not deal with the shit that we're talking about today. That's my dream. That's my American dream. Happy 4th, by the way. And this isn't the air on the 4th, but it is what it is. But yeah, those are my thoughts initially, John.
There was a student that I'm working with that she's gone through this like several times at this point, where she's gone through a bunch of different VAs. And so finding her process and hiring one, she's done all of these versions of, hey, here's like a friend of a friend, kind of approach. And then here's someone who's in the industry, but hasn't done this, but maybe they can bring, industry knowledge to it. And nothing's really worked, and a lot of the problems that she ran into was just not having a great system for onboarding, like Ren mentioned earlier, and letting someone who doesn't know your business kind of create those processes. So that way, when the new person comes in, it wasn't already great to begin with. And now we're adding another layer of unknown to it. And so it just kind of became a little bit of a mess. And so at the point, she's like, I would just rather do it myself. So she hasn't found that process for herself either.
I mean, probably the number one skill these days that you need to acquire and continually polish is resourcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
It is so easy to find incredibly skilled, adept, talented, experienced people to do anything you need done. But that requires two things first. One, you got to know what you need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you need to be willing to go out and find somebody and look for a history of experience doing that thing. When I look to bring people on, and I'll tell you about somebody who I just started on a test project today, which wasn't even planned, but worked out that way. But when I look to bring somebody on, she sent her resume to me because she was introduced to somebody else, and I'll tell you how this all came about. But she sent her resume. I didn't even look at it. It just does not matter. Because what I did look at is, what have you actually done? I don't care when you went to school. I don't care where you worked 6 years ago. I don't care about any awards or accolades or anything you've won. What I want to know is what you've actually done. Do you have experience, in my case, helping to brand and promote somebody like me? The answer is yes, in multiple cases. Cool. I don't care what your degree's in. It's irrelevant. You've done this thing multiple times. So let's have a conversation. There's, and if you think that what I'm talking about is small and plain small, which might be like what, I mean, as I was thinking through this topic, I was like, oh, I'm kind of worried that they might think that. I've got a story for you. The founder of the Four Seasons Hotel, his name is Isidore Sharp, Izzy Sharp, Jewish guy from Toronto. I want to tell you about how he hired his first ever staff member. So he started one hotel in Toronto, and then he was going to open up another one, and he needed somebody to manage his hotel. So you know what he did? It's in the 1960s. He went to the most popular hotel in town, and he spoke to the general manager of the most popular hotel in town. And he says, look, I'm not asking for you, but I know that a lot of the time people who are really good at doing a job know other folks who also might be really good at doing that job. I run this hotel. I'm looking for somebody like you to manage that hotel. Do you happen to know anybody? The manager at this hotel introduced him to somebody named Ian Munro, who he knew through somebody else who had just moved here through Europe that had a lot of experience. Ian Munro was one of the founding members of the Four Seasons Hotel. Basically built the entire customer service eloquence brand of it. The first employee of the Four Seasons Hotel. That's how he was found. Four Seasons now has 41,000 employees. But it doesn't start that way. It always starts by, hey, I need help with this thing. Where can I go where people are already demonstrating excellence in that thing? And either hire them or get them to introduce me to somebody else. So I was looking for somebody to help me. The book is like a year and a half out, right? Which basically means it's time to start thinking about marketing. And so I'm editing the final bits of the book proposal. But I've already started the marketing of the book. And a large part of that is platform growth and then very strategic networking. Who are the 5 to 7 markets that this book is going to be right for? And there's 2 things that I'm looking at. Number 1 is, who is this book right for? And the second is, again, working backwards. I'm always trying to work backwards from the problem. That's one theme you hear in this podcast over and over and over again. It's that theme. Okay, what am I trying to achieve? I'm trying to get people to talk about the book. Okay, well, I don't just want influencers. Well, I don't just want markets that are going to benefit from the book. I want that crossover between people that are going to benefit from the book and people that like to talk about stuff. Because trying to encourage somebody or a type of person to talk about something that doesn't normally talk about things is a habit change. Change is hard. People are resistant to change. It's a very difficult thing to do. Trying to get somebody who already talks about their thing over and over and over again and talks about things that they really love doing to also talk about your thing is really easy. So what are a couple markets where people can't shut the fuck up about what they do? CrossFit? Mumpreneurs? Realtors?
Vegans.
Yeah, vegans, but vegans don't have that crossover, right?
Yeah,
but 100% vegans.
Yeah.
So these are the markets we're targeting. And so a lot of what I'm doing is, okay, we're doing deep research into the micro influencers in these markets. And I'm going to be building relationships with these people, supporting their work, jumping with them on the phone, getting to know them over the next year and a half. So I need some help with that. In addition to the content and making sure that the book is phenomenal. And part of how I'm designing the book as well is with these markets in mind, making sure that we're including people and stories and quotes that appeal to each of these markets. Right? This all is a case of just working backwards. When you're designing a product, how can you engineer that product so that it does or has the best chance of doing out in the world what you want it to do? So how do you find somebody who's really good at this type of thing? Because you don't need to go very far to find people who say that they're good at book marketing, and then you look at their history of successes or failures or anything, and you're like, you've never marketed a popular book. So I don't know if you're good or not good, but there's no proof here. So how do you hire, so it wasn't an agency I'm looking for. It's somebody to be my right hand. Basically, I'm looking for another Amber in a different capacity. Kind of. And so I went to a bunch of people that I know in the book writing marketing world. And I asked them if they knew anybody. So I went to Billy Oppenheimer, who is Ryan Holiday's research assistant. And how do you figure this stuff out? It's you look for who Ryan Holiday's staff is. Billy happens to be present on Twitter and has a newsletter. So for 2 months, I read his newsletter. I responded to a couple of them. I responded on Twitter. I built a bit of a relationship with him. And then I sent him a message asking if he knew anybody. And he didn't, but that was one. James Clear, our best friend, his only staff member is Lindsay Knuckles. Lindsay Knuckles is Greg Knuckles' wife. Greg, who runs Stronger by Science and the Macro Factor app. Well, I've known Greg for years. So I asked Greg and Lindsay if they had anybody that they could put me in touch with. Basically, I said, I'm looking for my Lindsay. Is there anybody who she went to school with? Is there anybody who, because she was in journalism and newspapers, I think it was. Is there anybody who she knows, right? And that's beneficial because if they're friends with Greg and Lindsay, then they'd be able to call up Lindsay and be like, hey, we're trying to do this. What did you do with James? You know? So there's that connection too. And so they gave me a couple names, and I had some great conversations with them, and they didn't work out. I reached out to Tucker Max and Zach Obrant, who both ran a company called Scribe for a lot of years. Zach, funny enough, so Scribe was this massive book publishing company. Tucker Max, basically built Frat-Tire, and I've known Tucker for years, so I can message him and he'll respond. But Zach is funny because Zach, I was his camp counselor years back. All of these weird connections that you could never measure. But he built this company, and so again, I reached out to them. And then Charlie Hohen, who did all of the book marketing for a lot of the earlier Tim Ferriss books. He did Ramit Sethi's. So again, you got to figure out, this is what I mean about resourcefulness. You got to figure out who the people are behind the people, how this shit works behind the scenes. Oftentimes, these folks are amazing, super receptive, super kind, super generous. And so I reached out to Charlie, and he put me in touch with this woman who seems absolutely wonderful. And her history and everything is great too. And now Charlie and I are friends, and we spoke on the phone for an hour the other day. It's just this is how you, and I don't know whether it'll work out with this woman or not, but I tell you this story because this is how I think about things, right? I didn't put it out to my audience. I didn't take in resumes. I didn't put it out on Indeed.com saying I'm looking for a book marketer. I have no clue even what I'm looking for in terms of skill set, background. All that I know is I want somebody who has a history of excellence doing exactly what I want to do, which is branding somebody who's an author successfully, ideally multiple times. And so who is a successfully branded author? Okay, who are the people behind them? Cool. Let's see if they know anybody. That's how I do it. In terms of finding this very, very specific help, Ren, say some stuff while I gather my thoughts and decide on the next story I'm going to tell.
Yeah, everything Please. Across the spectrum of wanting to push something creative into a marketplace is similar, because this is exactly what we did musically back in the day when I was doing that whole song and dance. I couldn't get to Diddy. Are you kidding me? Or Southern Boy, so who runs the publishing, who runs the studio, who runs the creativity part? Who are the writers? Do the writers have assistants? Do the producers have assistants?
Who are they connected with?
Who are they connected with?
So I think about that. Let me interrupt you for a second, because I think about that. One of our strategies in getting on, one of the things that I'm going to be doing as well is basically in the next year, building connections with podcasters, because the week of the launch or the 2 or 3 weeks of the launch, I want to be on 70 to 100 podcasts. Mm-hmm. But not just any podcasts, right? I want a very concentrated strike in a few markets, because there are filter bubbles. Wherever you exist on the internet, you're in a small filter bubble, and people like you follow the same 5 or 6 folks. Mm-hmm. And if a few of those 5 or 6 folks all promote the same thing in and around the same time, it's an everywhere effect. You're not actually everywhere, but you're everywhere to the people who matter. And it seems like you're a much bigger deal than you are at that moment. So what we're doing is we'll be researching, we'll go down the top 100 lists of all of these different markets for their podcast. We'll identify any interview shows, and we'll make a list of all of the podcasts we want to appear on. And I'll do a few things there. Is I'll start to listen to some of those podcasts and respond and build relationships with them, similar to what I did with Billy. Like, it's not hard to do, man. Follow them on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to their email list, respond back thoughtfully every once in a while. Right? You just got to get ahead of it a bit. And so there's some familiarity then when you make an ask. And then the second is I will look through all of their past guests, and odds are I'll know at least somebody they've interviewed before. And in many cases, I'll reach out to that person and ask them if they'd be willing to make an introduction for the show. And this is, again, just a matter of, hey, how many people are you supporting? Are you building relationships with? Like you talking to? Because that's what I wanted to get at. When like, how do you make this connection? Oh, okay. Well, it's right there in front of you. This podcast has had 300 guests. You just go down the list and you're like, yo, I know that dude. Well, that dude 100% has the podcaster's email, number one. And they've already spoken for an hour. It's way easier probably than it was for you, and if you needed to figure out how to get a message to a
in the
producer
90s,
somewhere.
Yeah, that was impossible. Like had we had social media then, with the drive of a 20-something-year-old Ren and a half for that particular passion thing, we may not be here talking right now. To be perfectly honest with you, like you had to literally travel to New York to get things done from North Carolina. In any case, I love that because it ties right back into that human avoidance mechanism. Was that what the acronym is now? It's HAM, not HOC.
No, it's HAM. No, that one never changed.
Okay,
because that acronym has moved to the introduction of the book because it's so good.
Nice. Yep. Well, HAM is delicious.
Human avoidance marketing. HAM.
Yeah, it should be the first choice and on any plate. Sorry to the vegans out there. Sorry, polyamorous vegan Californians out there. We apologize for the ham talk.
I think we actually probably gained a bit of an audience of polyamorous vegans from California, so it's time to just piss you guys off again.
Trim them down.
Trim them down.
John sent me a text earlier. I think it's time to trim down the polyamorous vegan followers from California. So that's why I'm here with me and my ham. That felt Dr. Seussish. But yes, isn't this the strength of weak ties? That's what it is, right? Finding where you are somewhat tied to someone and having conversations. That's what I talk about all the time with our students who say, nobody's following me, nobody's responding to my launch week. And I'm like, who are you talking to? Do you literally ever talk to anyone else who's doing anything else on social media in a way that seems like you're in any way interested in them at all as a human? Like,
can I tell you something really funny?
Please tell me.
You know how we always, whenever we give like an example of just like somebody that we're making fun of, we use the word Pam?
Do we?
Yeah, we just use like Pam, change your goddamn profile photo.
Yeah.
Like use your face, Pam.
Yeah.
Like come on, Pam. Like nobody wants to see Anchor fitness training and like a logo of an anchor on Instagram. Like show your face, Pam. Like come on, Pam. Right. So we always hate on Pam. And as you were talking, I was writing out possible acronyms for polyamorous vegans, and I've decided that the acronym for that is Pam.
Nice.
That's what's important here on the show today.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for being here, Pam.
Oh my gosh.
I got two more examples of like hiring people, but anything you want to add, Amber, before I kind of move on?
Kind of tangentially related. Like, as I interact with people online, in person, what have you, one of my biggest pet peeves is people acting up and like being surprised when things aren't working out for them, right? Like, people don't always remember what you've done, but they'll remember how you've made them feel, right? And so like you never know with these different connections. Like if you show up as an ass online, you don't know who saw that and what you might have lost because of that behavior, right? And so this is just kind of like a really good reminder to like, you never know who's watching. So be thoughtful about how you behave in public spaces.
Just don't show up like a Pam, you know? I agree. I mean, look, we shouldn't need to say this. Don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Like it's everything I need to know. Everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. Like if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. Like it ain't that complicated. You're not impressing anybody by being a complete dick on the internet. It's not. You're not at all. You might get some rah-rahs because people like a fight, but people don't like fighters. They just like a fight.
Yeah, they're not going to hire that.
They're not going to hire that. I actually ended, I'm working on the proposal now, and there's a lot of changes, it's so interesting, this book process, like actually going so far out of the way to figure out before the product's produced how you're going to pitch it and selling it based off of the idea, based off of why it's unique and different, who you are and why you're the person to produce that thing, and why it's going to be successful in the marketplace. I'm going to write a proposal for every project that I do from now on. It has forced me to a level of thoughtfulness amongst how I go about doing something that I've never had before, truthfully. And so I'm working on the end of... Go on, Amber.
It circles back to what Gouch had us doing with all of our projects before we took on projects. It makes me laugh a little bit to hear you say that.
Fair. But and so the idea here, what I did is the end of the introduction. The end of the introduction to the proposal. So the introduction is actually very important in the proposal and in the book because it's the first thing that somebody's going to read. And so the end of it, I kind of added a little bit here, and there's a reason that I'm bringing this up now, not just because I was working on it today, but that's probably why it's top of mind, is this idea, Amber, of like, you never know who's watching and like the silent stuff. So I'll read you the end of the introduction as it stands right now. Privy to change, probably will change. But it goes, so how do you become the obvious choice? The answer is simple. You focus on what doesn't change, the human. This book is a recalibration. Research shows that over 90% of sales are silent in that they still happen through mostly offline word-of-mouth referrals. They're silent because we don't hear about them. For that reason, we put too much emphasis on the remaining 10%, the leftover scraps that can be measured and seen. The truth? By the time a sale can be measured, all the obvious choices have already been hired. This book is about the 90% of sales that happen behind closed doors. It's about how you can become one of the stories you don't hear about. But also, this book is about being able to do the work that you love to do. It's about making enough profit to pursue your passion and purpose. It's about being yourself. Mostly, it's about humans, because technology is always going to progress and humans will stay the same. Let's get going. So mostly I wanted to read you that because it's about the silent stuff that you don't hear about. And I think a very good goal in business is to become one of those stories you never hear about. I think that's a great story. I think that's a great goal. What do you guys want to talk about first? How we found Ray to produce Quick Coach, or how you find like an assistant coach to work in your fitness business?
I'm gonna go B. Both. I'm gonna go B first because I think more of the audience is in that predicament. I don't think a lot of our audience is building a software program.
Yeah, I mean, they're not building a software program, but there's a reason that I'm going to tell that story. Like all of these stories have kind of different points, right?
I believe both are relevant, but I'm personally more eager for the second because I talk to students all day.
The scaling your coaching, finding an assistant coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do you find an assistant coach to work in your coaching business? You're right. We hear this a lot. People are like, oh, I can't find good coaches. There's not enough good coaches. It's like, well, you're right. A, there's not. B, the reason why you are in a position to find another coach, like why you need one, is because you're remarkable. Like you're that good. You stand out. You're that good at what you do. it is difficult, edging on impossible, I believe, to scale a coaching business when you require everybody you hire to be subject matter experts, to be as good at coaching and fitness and nutrition or whatever as you are. I just don't think that you can do that. Whenever I think about hiring people in those types of roles, I think about two things. One is I think about the kind of McDonald's effect. Like, if you really want to build a business that can scale, you need to be able to hire people with low skill set. So you need to build the systems into your business, and we'll talk about that in a second, where people with a low skill set, but a high amount of the natural attribute that is actually important for success in what you do, empathy, how much they care, thoughtfulness, how reliable they are. You need to be able to fit those people into what you're doing. And then the second thing that I think about a lot is I want to build in a lot of redundancies into my business. Let me explain what that means. Redundancy means that you can sleep well at night because you're not worried that your one coach who you've built your entire business around could leave tomorrow. I have a lot of redundancies in what I do. All of my websites, all of my email lists, my computer backs up every single night to multiple external places. With the majority of what we do, it's not dependent on one person or one process. And I the way that I do it is kind of overkill even. But the reason that I do that is I want to sleep well at night. I don't want to be worrying that I said K to Amber and she hates it when I say K because she wants me to say okay if I understand something. But I was quick and didn't think about it. But secretly in her head, she's like, oh shit, does he hate me? Did I screw up? And then and then I'm worrying about, is Amber going to leave and like need to find another job? And then I'm screwed. And like, I don't even want to think about any of these things. Talk about a close to home example, right?
The accuracy of the statement.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But so there's a few pieces to that, right? But it all centers around what I believe is you need to build more or less a curriculum around what you do, which means that once you begin to scale a coaching business, a fitness coaching business, nutrition, whatever it is, there has to be a documented way that you deliver your program and the types of programs you deliver. So you can't just take on everybody anymore. Or if you do take on everybody, you've got to figure out how you're going to build these buckets and build multiple programs for different buckets. And if somebody comes in that doesn't fit a bucket, you're taking them on. You're not giving them to a coach. And the bucket is everything from the onboarding, which we have another episode. Actually, Amber, why don't we... Oh no, the sound quality in that episode was crap, wasn't it? Yeah, we won't recommend that episode. It's a good episode, but the sound quality was crap. But from the onboarding to the actual delivery of your program, like what workouts are they doing? Now, it doesn't mean that coach can't individualize them, or they can't ask you and say, hey, this person's got a cranky elbow. Like, what would you do here for exercise 2? And you'll be like, move them to this, have them do a fly instead of a press, whatever, right? And then next time they'd be able to do it themselves and more and more and more. But you have to have a curriculum that they flow into. Because then what you can do is then you hire your ex-clients. You hire the alumni of your program. You hire the people who, A, know where a new client is going to come from because they've been in that position, so they can connect with them. They already know your entire program inside and out because they have experienced it. And that's a key differentiator. They've experienced it. You haven't taught them, okay, phase 1, we're going to do this, phase 2. They've gone through it. They know how it feels. They've had the benefits of it. They know where at points people are maybe not going to feel that good. And then you look for what are the key attributes that you need in a coach. You need somebody who's empathetic. You need somebody who's reliable. And you need somebody who's thoughtful and responds quickly. You teach them everything else. But that's the most important skill that they've got.
That's what I just did with our new OTA hire, or for our one-to-one support mentors. That's exactly what I did. It's someone who's been through the process of working with various mentors on our team, and that had the right approach and mindset, and then the rest we can teach him. But everything else, he's been through the entire process, knows what it should look like, what it should feel like, and then where he's lacking in technical skills, we can fix that. Yeah,
you can fix that, and what you've done a brilliant job in the coaching upgrade for the Online Trainer Academy, Amber, which you manage, which you've done an amazing job there, is building the systems behind the scenes where you can plug in new coaches, right? And so we look for the attributes of people that will make a successful coach. And then the best place to find them is people that have already been through your program. Like that, to me, whenever somebody says, hey, how do I find a new coach? I put a job posting up on Indeed. I'm like, oh my God, man. Hey, nobody seems good. I can't find any good trainers. It's like, it's because all the good trainers are in the same boat as you and everybody else has left the industry. So, that's how you find them. Anyway, anything to add to that before I get into the final example?
No, I'm really wanting to sing.
You really want me to sing?
No, I was going to sing. I really want to sing the final countdown now because you said the final something, and that's exactly where my brain was. Sorry. Sorry.
Go ahead and sing that for a second while I choose another episode to recommend after I'm done.
Countdown. There you go.
No hesitation.
Yeah. I was waiting on it, actually. I was like, I can't believe somebody said sing and nobody asked me to do anything. Great commercial, too, by the way. Great song. I was alive then in the 80s, and great, even better commercial. Well done. Whoever marketed that, the microwave, that just, I'm sure that room lit up full of ad people. They're like, damn it, Johnson, that's a great idea.
Every time there's a song that could be plugged in, I always think about you, Ren, and I'm thinking, I wonder if he had the same exact thought I just had, and I always want to ask you.
I think in songs, so every single time someone says something that is a part of a lyric, immediately the lyrics come to mind. Now,
yes.
I've got some genres that I'm not quite as familiar with, heavy rock, heavy metal, country, not really in my wheelhouse. But if it's a particularly famous song, I'm thinking in songs all the time. It's just what I do.
Country is one of those funny things that I kind of want to learn to understand at some point. It's kind of like CrossFit, where it's like you have this one faction of people who absolutely love it.
Yes.
And then you have like everybody else who absolutely hates it. And you're just like, why are there these two dividing lines? There's like nobody in between who's like, I'm not partial, if it's on, I'll listen to it.
Marvel movies now though, John, because you have purists that will only allow something like a Waylon Jennings, Kenny Ryan, and new popular contemporary country. And now these factions are at war against each other because they don't like sort of the pop sort of country and pop sort of country. They don't respect the purists, highwaymen, et cetera, all that. Like, so it's weird now. It's like if you missed it so far, somebody got to explain a whole lot of shit to you for you to be able to watch the movie. That's Groot. He's a tree person. You don't want to go through that, John. Don't do it. Stay out of it. Stay out of it.
He's a tree person. Okay, the final example. I'm going to get through this one really, really quick. This is how we found the lead developer, Ray, for Quick Coach. And so I wanted to build something like Quick Coach for about 5 years. But I knew that I needed the right technical partner for it. Because obviously I don't know anything about technical stuff. And I knew I didn't just want to go to like an outsourcing agency, or at that point, the main ones were in either India or Ukraine. I knew I didn't want to go to an outsourcing agency and like manage an agency and communicate with them like what we needed. I knew it was not going to happen that way because of how I operate. So I knew I needed a real partner who understood fitness, understood what we were trying to do, was able to take the lead also strategically with the architecture of the product, who understood our vision. That's a tall order because that person's also got to be available to work. And oftentimes in those types of positions, these people are in demand. Like, even if they are there and you can find them, they're making $500,000 a year working for Facebook or Google, whatever it is. Like, they're not, I mean, a good developer will make $500,000 a year easy in a big company. So how do you find this person, right? Timing's got to be right. It's got to be the perfect person with this weird combination of skill sets. the way that I approached it was every single person I spoke to, I told them what I was building, what I wanted to build. And I did that for 5 years. There's no secret to the idea. I knew that it was all around the execution of the idea. I wasn't hiding it from anybody. I just told every single person I met what I wanted to do. And then on one podcast one time with somebody named Eric Malzone, I told him what I wanted to do. And he sent me back an email after the podcast and said, John, I want to introduce you to somebody. And that's how I met Ray. Ray at that point was in the process of leaving a company called CoinCloud. He built the entire tech infrastructure for the largest Bitcoin ATM rollout in the United States. You want somebody who's managed difficult technological problems? That's it. He owns a CrossFit gym and built a custom tech solution to manage his CrossFit gym. And he's done a whole bunch of other stuff, and he's kind of a serial entrepreneur. And he was in this weird situation with CoinCloud where he actually, when we started working, he had a choice with them, which was take a huge settlement payment, but he can't work in the crypto industry for 2 years. If you can't work in the crypto industry for 2 years, you're basically not in the crypto industry anymore. So that was option one. Take a whole whack of money. I don't know how much it was, none of my business, but take a whole whack of money, but basically be forced out of this industry because he knew so much that they didn't want like other companies to benefit from what he knew and what he did. Or don't take any payout and there's no non-compete. And so I came along at the perfect time. So he took the payout, basically enough money that he didn't need to think about money, I'm assuming. And I mean, we pay him well too, and so how do you find somebody for like a really difficult project like that? That's really hard to find. You basically just talk to every single person you know about for a very, 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 very long time. And you be patient. Is how you do it. Okay. Thank you, listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you, dear listeners, for listening to the Obvious Choice podcast. Can you tell that I've been writing a lot of words and not speaking a lot of words lately? How wonderful. Before you go, I want to recommend another episode if you're looking for something else to listen to right now. I'm going to recommend episode 42. This is one of my favorite episodes of all time. I keep recommending it. It is 8 non-obvious coaching truths. And I feel like probably a lot of the stuff on hiring is that it kind of hits that like non-obvious button a little bit, where you've been told and made to believe and think that you need to go through this process to hire people. And secretly, I always thought, I'm not speaking for you, but secretly, I always thought, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. All of these people are sending me these resumes. I don't know what I'm looking for. And then it's like, okay, cool, come for an interview, and you meet them in person for an interview, or on Zoom or Skype or whatever it is, and I'm interviewing them, and I'm like, I don't know how you're saying all the right things. It's not hard to say the right things in an interview. I don't know how to judge this. And yet, everything I ever read was like, here's how you need to hire people. And so to me, a lot of what we spoke about here is like non-obvious. Like this is the in the trenches stuff that I've never really read anywhere else, and it works for me, and I hope that it works for you. So episode 42 has more on that, talks about the fallacy of passive income and how that is a trap that in large amounts people should avoid. And you'll hear about why, and many more. So if you're looking for another episode 42, hope that you love it. Just scroll back in your podcast app, whatever you're listening to this in, and look for that. I don't know. Anything else? Amber, Ren, hope you guys are great.
Hint.
Yeah, no, I know. I forgot about it again. We'll get that in there at some point. Okay. Have a great day. Thank you for listening. Amber, welcome back.
You're killing
Don't
me.
kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. End podcast.